Amy, Michael, Amy, pleasure be speaking with you both today. I'm going to have a lot of compliments to throw in these 7 minutes or so. But
Oh, hate
Amy, we'll
this.
start with you, a two-parter. How are you doing? And how did you and Michael first connect?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm very excited. People are excited about this show. That's all I ever wanted. Michael and I connected when the book series came to me through Elliot Blake, who is, fundamental to this series. And do the series. I was looking at a couple other series. I read this book. My son went nuts because we listened to the books on tape. We listened. I was like, I'll listen to one, and then through the week, it was early COVID days when I started listening to the books, and we were through nine of them within a week, I think, or 2 weeks. And I was like, nah, there's something in this book. So then I met Michael. We're our Venn diagram is pretty close. There's a lot of affinity in there. We have a certain sort of sensibility that is matched.
Yeah.
And I don't know Michael, but I think it didn't take too long. We're like, yeah, you're my people. This seems like it's gonna work.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Amy and I just seem to um, share a lot of the same sensibilities in storytelling and um, so that's always a nice thing to do or to have because you don't always get that.
Well, Michael, something that you and Amy have in common, besides having too many different job titles, is that you both started in adult projects before finding success in kid-oriented projects. Michael, I'm especially impressed that you started as a Letterman intern, you and David Wayne and all sorts of people who later that became a footnote of sorts. But when did you start calling yourself primarily an author?
Well, it's this is a story that other writers absolutely hate, but the first book I tried to write was the first book I got published, which was The Sisters Grimm. I had grown up, but not a great student, C minus average. Teachers telling me I'd never be a writer. It's pretty bad when your fourth grade teacher, is your enemy, but.
Yeah, I
So
feel
like
that.
sitting down and trying to write a book sounded, like an impossible endeavor. And luckily I was surrounded by people, including my ex-wife, Allison, who is still my agent, and who sat down and kind of guided me and held my hand through the process until I had something completed. And then, I thought nobody's going to read this, so we'll put it out and that'll be the end of it, and I'll move on to other things. But people did read it and they kept reading it. And when I was on the bestseller list and I just was like, what is going on? And then, 20 years later, I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm a children's book author. So it wasn't something I set out to do.
But
But
did.
it's been the best job I've ever had for sure.
And then, Amy, about a decade ago, you were in the writer's room of a really underrated sitcom called Men at Work, which
That was good.
I thought that was a great show, and Adam Bush was fantastic on that one. But
Great. I love
what
Adam.
what exactly was your transition from that to showrunner, like you do with Sisters Grimm?
Yeah, I mean, look, kind of like Michael, like I went to graduate film school at Columbia. This series that I wrote that got me an agent was called Tweed, and it was sort of Deadwood-like, very, very like dark and violent. I had a script that got in the Sundance again, adult violent kind of thing. And then I wrote a comedy, which is very easy for me to do. It's like much easier for me to write that, I think. And that got me a deal. They're like, oh, she's a female comedy writer. And so I ended up on Men at Work. And then we were on hiatus. And I'd met a person at Disney and they said, come do a Disney show. And that was Craig McCracken's show, Wander Over Yonder. And then I was pregnant, started writing kids TV. So I never set out to do it. I just sort of was going to have a baby, and I thought this is probably a good place to sort of nest for a little bit. And then, here I am. I think it's been, I don't know, 11 years. Um, but, I still write, and I think Michael does too, is why these books are successful and the show is successful. It's like, I don't write for kids. I write for humans and I don't talk down to my son. You know, I've always talked to him as an equal, and I can't do that. Like it's impossible for me to do it. So, and I also don't want to hear it myself. So that's why I think that's why we get along. You know, I want complicated characters, and I want my females to have, you know, ferocity to them, and, you know, backbone and spine, and I want them to sort of, you know, be the heroes of their own journeys, and here we are.
And here we are. And thank you both for speaking with me today, and looking forward to all those future projects. Congrats on the series.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks, Darren.
Paltrocast.